hope everyone is doing well today. So firstly, let me just switch on my camera for a few minutes so you can put a little bit of a face to the name. So my name is Nirsa Haricharan. I will be your lecturer and your guide this semester for Logistics and Supply Chain Introduction. So that's 1A. Um, so I know we don't have a lot of students on today. I actually, with the whole drama on ARC right now, I don't even know how many students we have in this class as yet. So we should find that out before our next session. So I'm at least glad that some of you managed to get the link for the session today. So I'm not talking to myself completely. Um, so as long as you can hear me, so I'm glad. I'm going to start with a quick introduction. So I'm going to just switch off my camera and then start presenting my slides, and then we can have a little bit of a chat. So just tell me when you can see my screen, just with a thumbs up or something. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm not going to go too much into this. So let's just make that just a little bit smaller. Okay, so as I said, my name is Nirsa Haricharan. I live in Durban. I work in Durban. I eat, breathe, sleep, everything in Durban. I prefer the coast, and I've decided to obviously settle here. I'm currently the regional branch manager for a global logistics company. So I sit in Durban and I basically manage the KZN region. So you'll see throughout our lectures, I will be bringing in some, I'd like to say case study or maybe a little bit of a story, just so that I can give you some backing, especially when it comes to a logistics and a supply chain perspective. I currently have two master's degrees. So one, a master's in commerce in supply chain management, and the second one is an IEDP for women accreditation from Gibbs, which is a NQF level 9, which is basically a master's equivalent, and that's more from a strategic leadership perspective. I was one of 15 women to qualify for the program. It was completely TITA initiated, and basically just taking us through leadership, strategy, supply chain, transport, logistics. So a little bit of marketing, project management. So basically a whole host of everything. So I will be your support this semester. I have provided my email address as well as my contact number here. The moment this ARC module is live, or this module is live on my ARC, I will be providing you guys with all of the resources that's required. So our lecture notes or our lecture slides that we would go through in our sessions, any other activities, and basically various announcements. So expect literally 2 to 3 announcements from me in a week. So please always be checking our module, always be checking our ARC. I will be providing as much communication as I possibly can. Please, as I go through the session, feel free um, to unmute and ask a question, because I can't always see my screen when I'm sharing, so I can't always see when a hand is up. Okay. I'm just going to take you through some ground rules before we go through, not really rules, but just so that we can get a bit started here. I do have a pacer that I'm going to go through as well, and I try and get a pacer done for you before every, I would say, big assessment. So before an assignment, I will get a pacer through to you at least a week before. And this will basically just highlight a lot of things, but I'll take you through the pacer next. So just so that we get started, there is a WhatsApp group that I have now created. I obviously have nobody on this group purely because I do not know who my students are at this point. So welcome everybody. It is lovely to meet you. I have also provided my contact number, just if you're having a bit of difficulty to get onto that WhatsApp group link. So you're more than welcome to send me a private message and I will just add you to the group. I think rather get that going today so we already start some sort of communication. I'm hoping by the end of this week my modules reflect an arc so that I can really start pushing through announcements as well as content to you. I want to say use the group chat to communicate anything related to our module, any assessments, any examinations. So in my previous classes, so I'd like to say this is now the third time that I'm doing this module. And I think I've gotten to know a little bit of more of the ins and outs, sort of past experiences, etc. The students love to use the group chat as a form of communication with each other. So it may not always be to me. You may want to ask me something on a private basis. You are more than welcome to do that. But the group is more so you can interact with your peers, maybe even check up on what's happening on another module that you guys probably don't have a group chat for. This also helps everybody. What I saw a lot, especially with last semester when I took the module, there was an introduction of DAGA examinations. So with DAGA examinations, it's completely purely online. So a lot of students got a bit stuck with that. So they had their peers help them through it. I do work a complete 8 to 5 job, so I may not be able to get to answer your question immediately, but I will 100% answer it in the day. Or more so in the evening or the afternoon when I get a little bit more free time, and then we take it forward from there. Please, the next one is try and get your textbook as early as possible. I have popped the textbook author as well as the title of the textbook here. Please make sure that you get your textbook as early as you possibly can. This module specifically, you cannot rely on Google. You cannot rely on ChatGPT. No, no, no. You cannot do any of that. So the earlier you get your textbook, the better for you. So you also know where we at in terms of the semester and within our module outline, and it gives you a little bit more of a path to success and for you to get through this module, very comfortably. The next one is we want to be able to, right at the beginning, learn the difference between theory and application. This module specifically, and I don't want to scare you on the first lecture. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to just create some sort of expectation. And I think where you need to understand is with this module specifically, it is not about studying something and just regurgitating it out. It's all about application. So if there is a theory that's prescribed within the textbook, like for instance, what is PDCA? So it's Plan, Do, Check, Act. How do you now use a case study to or how do you use PDCA to apply within a business on a specific case study that was provided to you? So as we go along, I will do as much application-based exercises with you, just so that you have a little bit more of a foundation of what is expected, and then you take it from there. All right. The next one is please make sure that all of your assessments are done and it's submitted on time. I've had in the past students not completing assignments or not completing ICE tasks. This really, really does affect your CAS at the end of the day, and you can't just rely on your examination mark to allow you a good grade or even a pass mark. ICE tasks, as much as people try and think that it's mundane, it is not. It is at least counting for 10% of your CAS mark. I do provide 4 ICE tasks in the semester. I've already have due dates down in the PACER, so you will see that as we go along. You have to also make sure that you are submitting on time, especially when it comes to the assignments. I do not have control at all on the assignment due date. The assignment due date is completely based on faculty and the school. I cannot change that. So if it tells you that your assignment is due on the 29th of August at 23:59, make sure you are submitting it at that time. A minute over already starts your deductions. So make sure that you are submitting on time. Do not lose marks unnecessarily. I've had students that scored 90% in an assignment, for instance, and submitted it more than 24 hours late. I was crying inside, basically giving the student a 0. So let's not get to this point. Make sure that you are submitting everything on time. Your ICE task, I'm a lot more lenient on that purely because it's a date that I set. It's not a date that the school sets. I do give a final date at the end of semester saying that here's X date. All of your ICE tasks need to be submitted by this date to help you. The ICE tasks are there basically to help you. So as we do different modules, different learning outlines and themes, I then push through an ICE task so that you group everything together. So whatever you've learned so far, you are now applying it in an ICE task. So you're not leaving everything for the end. Try and do it according to the due dates that I'm now giving to you. All right. The next one is get your referencing guide in order. Have that right at the beginning, understand how to reference, whether it's an in-text referencing, an end-of-text referencing, a full-on referencing at the end, understand how it needs to be done. I've had also past experience, students having done really well in the assignments, however, has zero referencing. I have to deduct marks for this. So please make sure that you completely are aware of what the IIE referencing guideline is, and it's very similar to the Harvard referencing system. So make sure you just understand that. If you are not sure on how to reference, visit the library team. There will be sessions that is set up throughout the semester where they teach you how to reference. Join one of those sessions, understand it. If you have any questions, come and ask me. I'm here to help you and here to support you. And I'm happy to guide you through it as well. Okay, then our last point on this one is basically all of the marking for the semester is done by myself. I've had students a day or 2 days after submission bombard me with messages as to when they would get their results. The deadline is 7 to 8 days after the due date of your assignment, and your ICE task is when you will have your results captured on ARC as well as on SIMS. I capture it on the system. However, BC results or OC results actually, OC results then has to verify the results and then release the results. So that can take about another day. So that's why I said 7 to 8. I'm normally a lot quicker with the marking. So I try and have it done at least on day 5, day 6. This is also excluding weekends, all right? So these are only working days. So please take that into account as well. And I will provide you with detailed feedback when I do grade your assignment, more especially your ICE task. If the scoring is lower, I would give you feedback. If it's a higher scoring, then I don't really stress too much about giving you feedback because you now know that you're on the right track. However, from an assignment perspective, I give you a detailed feedback because a lot of that is then features later on when it comes to an examination stage. Okay, I know that was a mouthful. There was a lot to take in as well. Is there any questions from anybody at this stage before I move on? Okay, I think we all are good so far. Okay, I just want to unshare my screen quickly. Okay. The next thing I'm going to share is a pacer. So I do this pacer at the beginning of the semester so you understand what my expectations are and what the expectations are in terms of lectures, live lectures, recordings, etc. I also do this before every assignment. So assignment 1 and assignment 2, about a week before, I will then do a pacer, basically breaking down every single question and then sort of telling it to where it belongs in terms of the module outline, the theme, as well as the chapter that it belongs to. So it just makes it a whole lot easier when you are doing your assignment, you know where everything sort of belongs. And then I do a pacer for the examination. I'd like to say it's more like a support system or support session where we would then go through different elements of potentially what I think will come out. I do not know what comes out in the examination. I do not set the examination, but I guide you based on what we have experienced in the 2 assignments as well as any sort of past papers. Okay, so you will see this pacer. I will provide it on your on Arc. I'll push it through there the moment the module is live on my Arc. And this basically is your guideline, all right? We have 4 ICE tasks for the semester. It contributes to 10% of your mark. It features all of your learning units, meaning that after, let's say, the first learning unit, I will give you an ICE task. Maybe after the third learning unit, I give you another ICE task. So I can't tell you exactly where it's going to feature, but it'll be based on one specific learning unit in your module outline. The next one is your assignment 1. Okay, assignment 1. Sorry, I just wanted to get everyone on board. Your assignment 1 has a 30% contribution, and it features your learning unit 1 and learning unit 2. It just excludes theme 3 from learning unit 2. The due date for that is already out on PASS. So that's on the 29th of August, 2025. So you'll see you probably have just more than a month before that assignment is due. Assignment 2 is 25%, and that features learning unit 1 all the way down to learning unit 4. So there's a lot that we need to cover, and that's due on the 16th of October. So there's a wide gap between the two assignments. And then obviously your examination, which has 35% contribution to your total mark. And right now we don't have that date. So normally that date gets released around about mid-October. I'd like to say beginning of October is when we'll have more of an indication of when your examination is, right? As we go down the semester, I will give you more sort of indication on how it would work in terms of like your online examination, if that's where you're opting to go. There's various other options, whether it's a written examination, in-person examination at least. So I'll share more information as we go through the semester. Okay. Is there any questions so far? Guys, you're welcome to speak whenever you want to speak. You will not be interrupting me at all. You can hear that I like to talk, so I will just get back onto it. Okay, so if at any stage you need help or you need an answer to a question, you just let me know. Okay. So this is basically what the content of the pacer looks like. So obviously today is the 22nd of July. We're going to be doing an introduction and we're going to start on the learning unit 1, theme 1. So I chose obviously as little as possible because I want us to get down to exactly what we need to in terms of setting the pace or setting the semester first, even if we spend the first half an hour, 40 minutes on just doing that, and then the balance of it into learning unit 1, theme 1, I'm happy with that. All right. You will see that this is a live lecture, but it is still recorded. When we're done with the lecture, I then basically post the recording on YouTube. The link will be provided to you. So the full YouTube link, you can just go subscribe to it. So every time I do post something, you'll obviously get a notification. I will then post this on YouTube when I have ARC again or access to it. When I do get it, then I will post it and I will then create an announcement so you know that it's there as well. All right. So for me personally, it's all about communication. So I will communicate as much as possible, whether it's via WhatsApp or whether it's via ARC itself. I will post as much as I possibly can. All right. Then you'll see every alternate week we have a lecture, and then in between that we have a recording. There is a lot for us to go through um, in terms of content. It is impossible for us to do content in like 12 sessions. I think it's actually less than 12. I think it's 10 sessions if I'm not mistaken. It is impossible for us to go through everything in a live lecture. So I alternate the live lecture with a recording on YouTube. I will provide you with the exact same resources in terms of the slides as well as the recording on YouTube. You just have to take the onus upon yourself to go through that information. and learn and understand from there. There's also, I cannot cover the entire textbook. That is not what I'm here for. I'm here to cover specific points. This is an online, module as your other modules are. So the onus is still on you as a student to go through the module outline, to go through the different themes, the chapters in the textbook, any sort of notes. So the notes that I provide to you is basically point form. I speak about it, I talk about it, and that's where you're going to sort of learn and understand it a lot better. Okay. Then you'll see we'll go through alternate. I think I made a little boo-boo here. This is learning unit 1 and not learning unit 2. So you'll see we'll go along. First ICE task, here we go. Due date is on the 12th of August. So doesn't give us a lot of time, but I'll make it as easy as possible. All of your ICE tasks are out of 10 marks. So you basically, I will give you sort of the breakdown or the instructions, I'd like to say, where I only need X words. Like I don't want an entire essay of 5 pages. It may be just a one pager of 600 words or 500 words. You try and keep it within that sort of framework. Maybe some will have referencing, some will not have referencing, but I will stipulate to you so you have full knowledge of what the expectation is, right? Um, so you'll see we have all our live lectures, all our recordings. ICE Task 2 is then due on the 26th of August. I do understand this is quite close in terms of due date. I do provide you with the ICE task at least a week before the due date. So you do have time to do it. Also, a lot of times the ICE task helps you understand better when it comes to the assignment. And yeah, obviously your assignment is then due on the 29th of August. Your assignments should, I haven't checked as yet, should already be available to you. If it's not, probably within the next week. I will check within the week and I will post the assignment as well on ARC for those people that have missed it. I have had students previously who submitted assignment 2 in assignment 1 and then assignment 1 in assignment 2 and all of that because they had just gotten confused when they were pulling out the assignments themselves. Unfortunately, when that happens, I cannot grade assignment 2 in assignment 1 on ARC. So they end up with a 0 either way. So just make sure you are triple checking which assignment it is because a lot of times assignment 2 is released with assignment 1 and it can be a lot confusing for people. Okay. Um, and then we have ICE Task 3, which is due on the 16th of September. And then ICE Task 4 is due on the 7th of October. Your assignment 2 is then due on the 16th of October. Okay. In totality, we currently have 6 learning units. There's a lot of fat built into 6 learning units, I can tell you that. So we're never going to be bored. There may be, the way I structure the lectures, there may be some lectures like, for instance, learning unit 6, theme 1, it may be a shorter theme. So we may use this as a little bit of a national support session and then do our lecture after, but we play it as such. All right. It may not always, but what I'll always do is I'll post a message like a day or two before the lecture, and I'll say, guys, our live lecture on Tuesday. I'm doing a little bit of a support session, the first 20 minutes of the lecture, and then we're following up content thereafter. Please, as many people join as possible. So I'll always keep you updated in that respect. Okay, you'll see the last 2 sessions. So the 21st of October and the 28th of October, I've kept it for revision for the examination. However, the 21st of October is a bit difficult for us to do a revision for on an online basis or online recording. So if we do have anything from an overflow perspective where we need to cover a little bit more content on certain aspects, I try and do it in that 21st of October session. And then the 28th of October, because it's a live lecture, I want it to be as interactive as possible, where it's a Q&A. So if you stuck with something, you ask me a question. I present to you the national support session presentation. This is what you should focus on. This is the do's and don'ts. Try and do this, not do that. That sort of aspect. Okay, so I use that as a full scope because your examination is normally about a week and a half to 2 weeks after the last lecture. Most times that's how it's scheduled. And that basically is our pacer. All right, so I'll provide something very similar to you before every assignment and examination, so you'll be in a better space when it comes to preparation. Do we have any questions at all? Okay. Someone
Um,
unmuted? Yes.
yes, sorry, ma'am. I have a question. I missed it because I had to rejoin, but where will I be able to find the pacer?
So the pacer is something I have currently. I
Okay.
will post the pacer when this module is visible on ARC. So I would say hopefully within this week, I now have this module appearing on my ARC. And as soon as I do, I will post the pacer, the Learning Unit 1 Theme 1 lecture slides, and this YouTube, this recording for YouTube. So all of this information will be available on ARC, basically.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure, sure, no problem. Okay, if there's no other questions, I think we can start with our actual content lecture. Okay, not bad for timing. Um, okay, okay. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. So we're going to start off like literally with basics, right? So I'm going to pose the question, and I want your sort of answer. If anyone has the answer, put your hand up. If no one talks, it's fine. I can go through it. But who knows what supply chain management is? All of you have taken this module, so I'm assuming you at least have a little bit of an inkling idea of what the module is, or what the term supply chain management is. Okay, so I'm going to do it in like as layman's terms as possible so you have an understanding, not using sort of big words and all of that. So supply chain management, and you'll see a lot of times it's abbreviated as SCM. It's basically using or it's the administration around having the flow of goods from a point of origin to a point of consumption or a point of destination, for instance. Okay, so whether it involves you physically buying a raw material to produce an item, to you actually going through a production process of now producing or manufacturing that item, then to transporting the item, maybe storing it or warehousing the item, and then delivery at the end of the day to a customer getting their specific order fulfillment, and then finally to an after sale perspective. So it's as good as you walking into a Pick and Pay or a Checkers and picking up an item. Let's say it's a jar of coffee, for instance, or a bottle of coffee, and then thinking to yourself, how did this bottle of coffee actually get into the store? So you now look at the bottle and you try and figure out who's the manufacturer. Let's say it's a bottle of Nescafe, and Nescafe does the manufacturing. Where do they get their raw materials from? How is this coffee then produced? How is it then, is it warehoused in a specific location? Is it then transported into a DC or a distribution center, and then finally transported into a retailer like a Pick and Pay or a Checkers for me to then consume it? Okay, so it's looking at things completely from an activity perspective, and how exactly does a product evolve from a raw material stage all the way through to being a fully fledged product sitting in a store, or basically physically being in your hand. And supply chain is there to get you started in thinking things very differently and understanding exactly how the wheel turns, and what the full life cycle is. I'm sorry if you can hear forklifts and heisters and everything else in the background. I'm still at the office and a lot of things happen in logistics. Okay. um, so the whole goal of supply chain specifically, and you'll see if you are in that environment or planning to go into that environment, the whole idea is how best can you try and optimize and streamline these processes. You want to have a process that is efficient, so where you can do things a lot better at a better pricing or more optimized pricing. How is it then a little bit more cost effective, especially to the end user or the end product? And how best can you get your product there on time? Remember, we're working in an environment, or we're living in an environment or a decade where there's a lot of competition, there's very little monopoly. So what happens is there's a lot of different products that serves the same purpose, but some people tend to be a lot more attractive than others in terms of their product itself. Um, and a lot of times what happens, especially if I have to look at it, let's speak on like online, because I know that's something that everyone can relate to. So when you buy e-commerce or you buy online, you want to order from a place that delivers to you on time all the time. Like Checker 6060, for instance, it's foolproof. You're getting your items in 60 minutes without fail. Yeah, sometimes they might bump some item because they don't have stock or whatever it is. There's very little inconvenience in that specific product. So their supply chain is basically spread out to have timely delivery to their customers, and that's what sets them apart. I mean, Checker 6060 is now flying. Everybody's using them, or most of everybody's using them at the time. Okay, so that's basically what supply chain is in a nutshell, right? So as we go along, you'll understand supply chain just a little bit better, and you'll understand how, sorry, and you'll understand how, different planning, different sourcing, when you're talking about raw materials specifically, you want to look at whether you are importing raw materials from a different country. So you now need to look at the suppliers you are buying from, whether you're negotiating different contracts with them. How do you now manage their different supplier relationships? So those are some of the sort of components in a supply chain. You want to look at, from a production perspective, how the products are made as efficiently as possible. What is the quality standards that that business or organization has now set up? Based on this, then they need to make sure that they're meeting those different criteria in terms of quality. Then it's the logistics, how you're managing the transportation of the products, how you're managing the storage of it. When we speak logistics, we're not just speaking transport of getting something from A to B. We're speaking full logistics, which is warehousing, storage. There's different automation that goes into play. Then we're talking on transportation. We're talking different modes of transport, whether it's air, sea, road, pipelines. It's these are all the different factors that we're looking at. And then inventory management. How do you now manage your stock level if you're selling a product? How best can you manage it so that your demand and your supply is in equilibrium? You need to understand it from that perspective. But right now, I'm just giving you a very high level introduction of it. And as we go along through the semester, you'll see I spend a lot more time on sourcing. I'll spend time on logistics, on inventory management. We focus a lot on inventory management in this specific module. Um, and then it's the after sales, the customer service of everything. If a customer has a problem, what support are you now providing to them? How are you handling inquiries? What is the return leg of it? You want to maintain as much customer satisfaction as possible and also have a good reverse flow of goods. So if there is any returns of your product, what are you doing with it? Are you reusing it, recycling it, having, disposing of it? So all of this now comes into play. So I don't want to scare you by just spitting out all of these concepts. We will take this slowly throughout the semester, but this is just a very broad insight into what supply chain is. Um, I've obviously shared with you that I work in the logistics and a logistics environment, and you may think, okay, logistics, as she mentioned, it's transport, it's warehousing, but there's so much of supply chain that physically goes into logistics itself. So I started my career off in sales, and then I worked my way up into different roles. And as I move through the chain, I sort of understood, because I was just like you, where you sit in a lecture, you understand what supply chain is. Oh no, you can do this. Don't worry, I've got this down. That sort of mindset, and then you get into the real world, and it's a bomb just exploded in front of you. So only when you're in it do you really understand what supply chain is. You start asking questions very much more differently. I would walk into a customer in the beginning and say, what you're sending, who you're sending it with, how much you're spending, and can I do you can will you give me a chance? That sort of questionnaire or pilot pitch, right? Or elevator pitch, actually. And then the more I got into it, you now need to start understanding people's supply chain. So I'd walk into an environment, let's say like a textile industry, or let's say it's textile and fashion, okay? And they now are part of the manufacturing and wholesale sector. So I now need to understand which sub industry they are part of. Then I start asking them the question, is your product locally or internationally produced? Then tell me, okay, let's say it's international. Where are you getting your product from? India, Pakistan, China. And they need to understand in those three elements, is there samples? What is the sample process? If I don't get their samples in on time, what is the knockout effect to the customer? So I need to understand their supply chain. That means they can't do quality testing on the samples. They can't send the sketch or the design to their customer. That means that they ship or the manufacturing then gets delayed by another month, which means that the ship then gets delayed by another month, and then pushes them out of season. So I need to understand a customer or a business's supply chain to know how I can affect them in terms of bettering their cash flow, improving their balance sheet. How can I then change their business? And you can only do that when you understand somebody's supply chain within their business. Okay. Um, I want to take you through a little bit of examples, right? Um, and within this examples, we want to understand different components for, let's say it is a automotive industry. So this specific example is an automotive industry. So these are the various characteristics when we come through to the automotive industry. And this is their supply chain basically dissected in a very simple way. So the raw materials, let's say it's a vehicle, all right? So it's a car. It'll be steel, it'll be aluminum, it'll be rubber. So we now break it down where their raw materials are coming from. Who's the suppliers? The suppliers are the ones providing the raw materials, as we've mentioned, also tires, batteries, electronics, anything that basically fits in to make the car a complete item or product. The manufacturers are the companies that assemble your different components, like you have Mercedes or Ford, Toyota, VW, whatever the different brands are. So the different OEMs. The distribution of it comes in where the vehicles are then transported to dealerships through different logistics companies. So whether it's different car carriers, whether it is coming down on the ship, whatever it is, you're now going to have transportation to the different dealerships. Your retailers are the dealerships themselves. They basically the semi-end product user. Your customers are the ones that basically make your purchase. They're the ones that purchase the vehicles, and your aftermarket is your maintenance, your repairs people, your spare parts people, basically the ones that have your approved service centers. They would be your aftermarket. So this is basically a little bit of an indication of what an automotive supply chain looks like. So you can see it's right from inception when we look at it from a raw material perspective, right down to a service industry. So whether it is your maintenance service or your mileage service, whatever it is, all of that now falls within the supply chain specifically. Okay. Uh, we've got a second example here, and this is completely different industry. This is more within your food and let's say beverage industry. So here we've got different raw materials. So agricultural products like whether it's grains, fruits, vegetables, anything that you can sort of, a livestock, for instance. Your farmers are the people that would then grow, they would harvest your crops, they would raise your livestock if need be. Your process specifically within the food, like let's call it the food industry, is your companies that process the raw materials or raw food materials into finished items, whether it's a canned item, it's a packaged good, whether it's a beverage, whatever it is. So there's different sort of like FMCG specific businesses, whether it's a Premier FMCG or a Unilever or a RCL Foods, for instance, they would then be part of the processing division. Your packaging will be suppliers that would then provide packaging for your different foods. Your distribution will be when your products are being transported to different DCs and different warehouses for final sale. Then your retailers are your supermarkets, your pick and pays, checkers, etc. And then your customers are the different individuals and your different businesses that then purchase it for that, for their own consumption. So this is just, a few of it. And then the last one is your textile industry. So this will be your fabrics, your cottons, your dyes, zippers, maybe different buttons, etc. Your suppliers will be your textile mills, your accessories, accessory providers. So especially, in different parts of the provinces, there's different specializations in terms of products. So in Durban specifically, because I know the market very well, there's a lot of textile providers here. So whether it's your accessories like zips and buttons, etc., you are inundated with the amount of suppliers that you can find. Your manufacturers are your clothing manufacturers, whether they cut and sew and assemble the different garments together. Your distribution centers are your warehousing and where your logistics are coming out from, where they're transporting the products. Your retailer specifically is your different clothing stores. So where you and I would shop, they would then sell the garments to the various customers, and the customers is me and you. The people that actually physically purchase the item and the ones that wear it. And then obviously your aftermarket is then looking at whether there's like a secondhand shop, maybe some returns, maybe from a recycling perspective, donation shops, etc. These are all your aftermarket sort of portions, part of your supply chain. Is there any questions so far? I don't want to overwhelm you on the first session. Okay, so we'll just do things at high level and then we'll obviously go a little bit more into it because all of this is broken down into your other learning units where we'll spend a little bit more time. So one of the topics in our learning unit specifically for this or in our theme specifically for this learning unit is understanding what the current sort of trends are in supply chain management, especially when we're looking at things from a new technology perspective and a new era perspective. And the first one is digital transformation. So when we talk in digital transformation, we're talking about businesses introducing a whole lot of automation into their business, whether it is from a robotics perspective or just automation in their warehouse specifically, just so that there's better efficiency and you want to reduce as much human error as possible. So when we talk on robotics, okay, and I'll use robotics from a logistics perspective. So I actually watched a video not too long ago, I think on YouTube, where a a last mile delivery company was using robotics to sort products or sort shipments. Okay. So when you're working, let's say in the courier industry, for instance, you can understand that you have various different routes in a specific area or in a specific province. So let's take Durban, for instance, okay, KZN, for instance. KZN, Durban's obviously the main source. And then you have Richards Bay that's being fed from Durban. You have Pietermaritzburg, as well as you have Durban South, which is your Port Shepstone, Margate, Port Edward, etc. So everything is fed out from here. But Durban itself has their own set of routes, whether it is Umhlanga, Belito, Stanger, Malvern, Chatsworth, Phoenix, these are all different areas. So when you get a truckload of items or courier that's now dropped on your floor, you now need to sort 2,000 to 5,000 parcels into various different areas in Durban. So take out your feeding branches like Richards Bay, Maritzburg, Durban South. You now need to still split it into the different areas. So what helps is robotics because you now don't have human error. Because everything is quite automated in terms of a customer creating stuff online, that's already fed into the back end of your system. You already know how much of volume you are anticipating, and it's all barcode related or Weibo read. So your robot, for instance, can read it, take your parcel, put it in a specific bay, etc. So it basically makes things a lot simpler. You don't have misroutes. You can then communicate immediately if there is a problem, and then find a solution for it, and put it back into a relevant bay that you need to put it in. Similarly, from a warehousing perspective, especially when you can imagine, let's speak on a different industry like a fashion house, for instance. They have various products. So let's say a specific fashion house sells t-shirts, pants, and shoes, right? So the t-shirts, they have it in black, white, red, blue, green, okay? And they now have sizes small, medium, large, extra large, double XL. Each one of these is different SKUs. So a black small will be one SKU, a white small will be another SKU, a green small will be another SKU. So you can imagine there's thousands of different SKUs. When a business gets an order for, let's say, a black medium shirt, a large pants, black pants, and a size 6 shoe, for them to physically bring the elements all together into a package for the customer to collect or have it delivered, everything needs to be set out accordingly. So where automation comes into play when we're speaking on warehousing is everything is now barcoded. It's scanned and it's put into various sections, whether it is different pallet positions or whether it is a warehousing rack or a little cubicle that's labeled. It just makes it a whole lot easier. So the picking process becomes easier. So I urge you to try and watch as many videos as you possibly can. YouTube is the best. You can look at it from a Toyota perspective of how their production process is run, where the different elements are pulled into play. Or you can look at it from an average TikTok, for instance. You go onto TikTok and you can pull out, warehousing options, and you can see how automated it has become, where it leaves little to absolutely no room for error. So that's where digital transformation comes into play. Artificial intelligence is a huge thing. You can put so much of optimization into routing or decision making, so you have your demand and supply in basically on the dot in terms of equilibrium. You don't want to be in a position where you have obsolete products, and everything now needs to go on sale, or you have to discard of items because you're now not getting enough demand for your product and you've oversupplied. So you want to keep it as equal as possible, where you have a little bit of a buffer stock, meaning a stock that can carry you um, if your demand does exceed for whatever reason. Um, you know, AI, demand forecasting, all of this from a digital transformation perspective gives you these keys to be able to, make those decisions at the end of the day. Okay, the next one is sustainability and green logistics. And this is by far getting very popular amongst various businesses. There's sustainability policies in organizations right now of how best they can be eco-friendly, whether it's reducing their carbon footprint, maybe they need something that's more energy efficient in terms of transportation, maybe there's fuel specific transportation, maybe the packaging needs to be more sustainable. What is the recycling policy? So this is where businesses are going for towards the future. Sustainability does count towards triple BEE as well. So a lot of businesses, in order for them to be, at a better par level on their BEE, they go into various different sustainability policies. And we'll go through green logistics as well as we go throughout the semester. The third one, which is probably one of my favorites, is e-commerce. I mean, e-commerce has literally taken the world by storm. You can get anything and everything delivered to your door, basically. And e-commerce from a last mile perspective is you want to meet your customers' demand. You want to be able to provide them with something that's fast, something that's flexible, a good delivery option as well. But just from a picking, packing process in terms of their supply chain, right down to a delivery element, all of that can be automated. There's different APIs, there's different IT integrations that's involved that can allow for this, seamless transition when it comes to e-commerce deliveries from a picking perspective all the way down to a delivery perspective. Roping in warehousing, roping in automation, digital transformation, all of that. And then the last one is personalization and customer experience. And I think a lot of people take this for granted, but it's something that sets you apart from your competitor. So I recently, not recently, but like about a year ago, I met a customer that does complete personalization of jewelry. And I walked in there and it was completely silver stuff. And I didn't know what to expect. And then I heard how much this customer is actually like producing and how much of distribution they actually had. And I was gobsmacked. I went into their website and I played around a bit, and their website is completely personalized. So I can go into the website, I can get my husband, for instance, something that's completely personalized, and it's something that's so meaningful. But this is where it's coming in, something that's customized. You want to be able to give an individual their own preference, because you want to have a very flexible manufacturing process. And a lot of times this is where it's going. You get a lot of branding companies that now come into play where they're doing personalized t-shirts or hats or bags or whatever it is. But this is the sort of trend that it's going to look very put together. And the flexibility around this is basically next level. Okay. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm not gonna like zoom past this last one, all right? And the last one, we want to look at some of our, I like to say supply chain drivers, but this is more especially on what builds your supply chain and what aids your supply chain. So you wanna, as a business, you want to streamline your supply chain in terms of the operations. You want to reduce as much cost as possible. You want to get better service levels. And you also want to be a big competitor in that market. So you want to gain that competitive advantage. So you want to know how your supply chain responds to the market, and what is the different drivers, right, that basically helps them to respond. So the first one is facilities. And basically, this is the actual physical location, of your supply chain network. Where is your product now stored? Where is it assembled? The sort of current trend right now is to look at sort of the lowest cost location for your facility based on where your demand is or based on where your distance is. Um, you want to make decisions based on location as well. And you'll see we'll probably go through a little bit on, different spatial locations or facilities, etc. But you want to understand where your location, where your capacity, and where your flexibility. So a lot of times, businesses put their storage facilities, if they only have one, closer to where their um, um, sort of manufacturing is sitting. So then it just becomes a lot easier. Some of them put their facility closer to where their biggest target market is. So for instance, I had a customer that had done all of their manufacturing was basically imported. The head office and their warehousing facility was based in Durban specifically. The biggest clientele for them was sitting in Cape Town. So basically, they were paying for distribution from Durban to Cape Town on every single item that they sold. as opposed to them having a storage facility in Cape Town and then shifting it either way. And now, sort of post COVID, um, your delivery expectation from Durban to Cape Town, for instance, is now 48 going into 72 hours purely because there's no flights. So now you are not only spending more money, it is also taking you longer to get to your target market. So what's the better option? Use something that's more decentralized in terms of storage solution. Cut down your storage in Durban, have a small facility up in Cape Town. You now have a cheaper delivery cost, number one. And number two, you potentially have a quicker to market service. So you are above your competitors in that regard. So facility, very, very big importance. The next one is inventory. So you want to understand your different materials, your different finished products in your supply chain, whether it is raw materials, whether it's something that's work in progress, so WIP, which we will go through that, whether it's something from a maintenance and a repair, so MRO, or whether it's just a finished good. So those are the different elements when we're talking inventory, the four different elements talking inventory. So you also want to understand between your supply and your demand, where you're sitting. Information. So information is also a key supply chain driver because basically it's the glue in the supply chain. It allows the other drivers to work together. So a lot of times when we're talking information, we also want to talk about integration from an IT perspective. So you want to have, for instance, one SAP system that talks to production, manufacturing, distribution, order fulfillment, procurement, maybe HR, then to top management. You want everyone to work off one system that is then visible. So information sharing, huge, huge supply chain performance driver. You don't want to be in a situation where procurement is working on one system, distribution is working off another system, production is on another system. Nobody then talks to each other. And unfortunately, you have a huge disconnect in your supply chain. Then we have sourcing, and sourcing is how can we get the most competent strategic supplier on board that has a direct impact on your business success. They need to become sort of a supply chain stakeholder in your organization specifically, because if, for instance, you now run out of a specific product in terms of their raw material, can you then pick up the phone and then call your supplier, and then he has stuff that he can send to you pretty quickly, and that's the type of supplier that you want on board. Unfortunately, when we're looking at it from an import supplier perspective, that timeline is a lot longer. The minimum order quantity is a lot larger. It doesn't allow for you to be very flexible when it comes to raw materials from an importing perspective. Then we have pricing, and pricing also big performance driver. And the pricing is basically what you would basically charge for a whole host of benefits or different products that you're now selling to your specific buyer. So the pricing specifically, it affects the buyer in terms of whether they're going to choose on their specific behavior, whether they will choose your product or choose a competitor's product. It does impact your performance in your supply chain. So any sort of change in pricing has a direct impact on what the revenue of your business is. It can also affect the cost. So all of these things need to now talk to each other. And then the last one is your transportation. You want the transport to be a link between your supplier to your customer, to your warehouse, to your different factories, to your storage facility. And there's a lot of transporters in the world, and especially in South Africa. So transportation choices has a large impact on your supply chain responsiveness. Specifically, you want to create an efficient process. Um, it's a huge part of the economy as well. So you want to be able to use somebody that is, they tick all the boxes. On time delivery, has a good track record, gives economic development to, your different regional areas that you're part of, has a national footprint, has a good business continuity plan because stuff happens. A vehicle does break down. What is the continuity plan? So it's nice to understand all of these drivers before you actually, get started in terms of business. Okay, I know that was a mouthful and probably a lot to take in our first session. However, I think we've covered a lot when it came to theme one in terms of learning unit. Um, Again, here's my contact details. Please send me a message directly after we're done with our session. And once we are, then I'll create a group chat and, we can start communication offline as well. Is there any questions? Are you guys excited for this module? Are you happy to get started? Is it too much for you? Do I maybe need to simplify it a little bit better? Um, how are you guys feeling? Okay, I'll take it as though we are all good. Okay. As mentioned, when I do get access to ARC, all of this will be posted. I am assuming before our next group session, we will have this, or before our next live recorded session, which is next week Tuesday, I will have all of this up and running on ARC. But if you need it like pretty urgently, you just let me know and I can easily just email it through to you if you need to get started on anything. I will also provide you with the module outline. I do know you have access to that already, but I'll provide that to you. And when I do have access to the assignments, I'll provide that as well. Okay, if there's no questions, thank you so much for your time, and we will chat again in 2 weeks' time. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.